will be with me, with Leticia and Ivan, and we are going to cover a few things about Global Minds, what our program is all about, and also answer a lot of your questions. Okay, so basically what we did is we looked at all the questions that you sent us when you registered for the webinar, and we tried to categorize them and have answers into the presentation. So we'll take about at least 45 minutes to go through the presentation and answer quite a lot of those questions, okay? But then at the end of the webinar today, for at least half an hour, if no more, we can answer your questions live, okay? So what I would suggest is that you already start writing down your questions in the question and answer section. If we can answer them directly, we will. If we think, well, just wait a minute because it's on slide 17, we won't answer because it's in the slides already. So if you have a bit of patience, you'll find your answers. But also, just you can just wait until the presentation is finished, and then we will stop the recording, and then we can have a direct conversation. Okay, so until then, we will record because we understand that no matter how much of this information is already online on the website of Global Minds, sometimes it's easier when somebody explains it to you. Okay, so that's the plan. So there are two people with their hands up. So I'm usually you put your hand up when you have a question. So I can tell you guys that you can put your hand down for now because we will only really deal with those questions in about 45 minutes or so. Okay, so yeah, don't get the pain in your hand by keeping your hand up. Okay, so we'll continue. So welcome to the this introduction webinar for Global Minds, the Erasmus Mundus European Master in the Psychology of Global Mobility, Inclusion and Diversity in Society. This program is run by 4 universities, coordinated by us here in Ireland, by the University of Limerick, but also University in Portugal, Poland, and Norway. And we were very lucky to get funding for scholarships and for running this program. And this edition open now, so students applying to start studying in September 2025 has quite a lot of scholarships available. So we will discuss, how and what all of those things are all about, okay? So what is the plan for today? Well, mainly to also just introduce ourselves, okay? So I am Anca Minescu. I am also teaching on the program, but right now and most of the time, I'm also the European coordinator of the program. And as the Vice European coordinator is Leticia Scheidt, and she is here with me today. We are hiring a new European administrative coordinator. This person will be in place somewhere in the spring. It used to be somebody else, and now we have this kind of vacancy. So that's in UL. In UL, we also have Dr. Sarah J., who is a local coordinator. And then in Portugal, we have Christine Melanie Vauclair, who is the local coordinator in Poland. We have Ricardo Rodriguez, who is also a vice coordinator. So they together are taking care of you on path A. Then we have Thomas Schubert, who is the coordinator in Oslo, and Karolina Mazurowska, who is the coordinator in SWPS University in Warsaw. And Gulnaz used to be in Oslo and is coming to Limerick as well. So for now, she's here in the middle, transitioning, right? Hold on, where is my mouse? Yeah, here. So Gulnaz will turn green very soon. And here I found a photo with me and Ivan, because Ivan, I forgot to ask you for a photo, but this was from our dancing at the summer school this year, right? So Ivan
That's
is,
perfect.
yeah, we at least it's a happy photo, right?
Yes.
For the best of times. So you, the ones who will come on the program, will also dance with us at the summer school at the end of year 1. I'll explain that in a minute. But I'm really, really grateful that Ivan Lopez is with us here. He is a second year Global Minds student from originally from Mexico, who is now in Poland. He is now the head of our Global Minds Students and Alumni Association, as well as the social media officer for the program. So he's a student in the program and he's working with us on the program. I am so very grateful because he's with his hand on the pulse. And I'm sure that a lot of you might have already interacted with Ivan so far. So these are some of the people, okay? And what we're going to discuss today is I'm going to give you an overview of the program. So what is this all about? Hopefully you know by now, but if you don't, now you're going to figure it out what Global Minds is all about. Then we're going to discuss the applications process, which is of course now open, and where a lot of questions, of course, are coming in. So we're hoping to provide some clarity. And then one of the biggest issues in pursuing a master's program abroad, of course, are the finances. So we hope to just give you the clarity that we do have and explain that for some things we will never have more clarity than that. So it's also a matter of being warned, you know, that there are some costs and some issues that you have to think about when you decide to join the program with or without a scholarship. Okay. So for the introduction, before I go any deeper, we have a team, okay? We have an European team and a local team as well. That the local means local in multiply by 4. So in Limerick, in Lisbon, in Warsaw, and in Oslo, we have a local Global Minds team. And then here in the University of Limerick, we have also the European coordination that sits across the 4 locations, okay? And here I want to cover, to tell you why we do this, because it's very difficult to run a master's program in general and a joint Erasmus Mundus master program in particular. So we must have a strong why, a strong motivation to keep us all going and to make this happen. Okay, and then I'll point you to the direction of the website and of our link tree, where you really have quite a lot of explanations about many of these things. Okay, so just as I was saying before, we have at the European level, myself and Leticia right now, and a European administrative coordinator is to be appointed in spring, and then we have at every one of the 4 universities a local team, okay? And then in addition to this, we work really closely and want to work even more closely with Ivan and his team in the Global Minds Student and Alumni Association. And Global, I think it started as an alumni association, but now I think it's really much more about adding student in the title there. So I'll do that in the updated slides. Okay, so why do we do this, right? What's our main motivation? What is really the reason to run, to educate people in the psychology of migration, inclusion, and diversity, where first of all, our motivation is to deliver an excellent qualification, to give you a master's degree, okay? And this is because we strongly believe that psychology as a discipline with the different branches of cultural, social, and health has a lot to offer to really solving the current problems. And the current problems, the great sustainability challenges, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are related to climate change, but also to social inclusion, to the digital transitions, to the increased diversity and mobility and movement of people around the world, okay? So that's our first and foremost reason to be here. We are educators, we are universities that specialize in psychology, that has something to say to these problems. So we want to contribute to solve those problems. We also very specifically focus in Global Minds. So there are other other programs in psychology that might do some of these teachings around inclusion, for example, or migration. But what we do very specifically is that we focus on developing this set of intercultural competencies and global mindsets. Okay, so we focus very much on the cross-cultural psychological research and cross-cultural knowledge around what it takes for people to be able to work and to collaborate across differences, across different nationalities, across different social classes, across different types of identities, no matter what these identities are rooted in, whether it's a sexual orientation, or whether it's age, or whether it's class, whether it's occupation, and so on. So these intercultural competencies are a very key element in Global Minds, and we are very much in formal education and informal activities and education throughout the program, but especially in your lived experience and the fact that you have to move into different countries, but also the fact that you have to work in a very, very diverse cohort of students. So you will learn how to collaborate and how to cooperate across differences because you will live it. You will learn it from the book, and you will learn it from your experience. Okay. So the last things that are related here to points 2 and 3 are about how we do it. Okay. So our program in Global Minds is a network. It's a product of trying to get the best from everywhere we are networked in, mainly from the 4 universities, ISTE in Lisbon, SWPS University in Warsaw, University of Oslo in Norway, and University of Limerick in Ireland. Okay, so these 4 European universities are the ones that are delivering the program, that are going to be teaching you. However, we are a network in a wider set of organizations, also organizations where most of our students can do their internships, okay, because there's an internship element in our program. So we act as bridges, okay, between new psychologists, which are you, our future graduates, and current knowledge, current knowledge in terms of academic knowledge, but also practical knowledge. So on the ground, kind of people who do the front work. So all this means that we have very much this model of knowledge co-production. Okay, so we very much are dedicated to things like decolonizing psychology, learning from each other. We want to learn from our students as much as they are learning from us. We have to offer what is the best in Europe, but of course, the best in Europe doesn't mean the best in the world. It just means that this is what where we are housed. This is where our home is, and we are doing our best to filter that into the program. However, because you all are coming from all around the world, what we really want to do is to develop knowledge together, right? And to try to develop the skills in our graduates that they can apply this knowledge, right? So in particular, because this is a master's of science, and the second year of the master's, you have to produce a master thesis at the minimum. You should leave this program when you graduate with solid research skills where you can help contribute to these global challenges, okay? Because you have demonstrated that you are applying previous knowledge, theory, and methods into a research project of your own. So really scan this if you haven't had it so far, but I saw that Leticia also put it in the chat. So really do save these links, right? Because a lot of this information that I'm covering is there, okay? Our Global Minds website actually is congratulated by many other Erasmus Mundus programs. So I do believe we have a good website, where information is structured and easy to find. We are working all the time to improve it. Okay, so nothing is ever perfect. Everything is work in progress. But we do really, really urge you to bookmark and try to look at these places, because you will probably find there the information you need. And maybe you will find it faster than we are able to respond to every single email. Okay. So what is Global Minds? It's a 2-year master's program delivered entirely in English, even if you are living in at least 3 other countries, which are non-English speaking countries, Portugal, Poland, and Norway. The program is delivered in English, okay? We are gonna deliver 120 ECTS throughout the modules, 60 in the first year with taught modules and the summer school, and 60 in the second year between the internship, 3 months internship, and the master thesis. okay? And our specific focus is social and cultural psychology. This is why to enter this program, you have to have a background in psychology. So our program is for psychologists, okay? I'll come back to that part later because this is important in the way we have changed some of the application process. But just bear that in mind. You need to have a certain level of psychology before you enter the program. So your bachelor degree or another master's or another kind of qualification where you have quite a lot of psychology in your bag so that the Global Minds Masters can bring you at the master's level, right? We are not going to start from the Adam and Eve of psychology. We start from the bachelor level, right? So like we are very clear about this because this is how our program has been accredited. So we cannot accept people who have done any other types of studies without a solid background in psychology, okay? And this is because this is a master's of science, so it is very much about research methods and research methodology, about scientific knowledge, as well as the practical skills which are learned and applied in the internships, right? But somebody who would have worked all their life in a humanitarian field, who, kind of in spirit is very close to Global Minds, but on paper, qualification-wise, has no psychological background, that person is not suited for Global Minds, okay? So we are interested to hear how many of those people are out there so that we can develop other programs, but Global Minds is for psychology graduates, okay? Now, the focus in Global Minds is across three lines of study, okay? Diversity and inclusion, mobility, migration, and health. These correspond to our paths of study. I will explain that later, okay? And the last thing that is quite important is that element of experiential learning and moving between country and country. So what is typical and what is specific to Erasmus Mundus Masters is that they are offered by a consortium of universities, so not just one university, multiple universities, right? But that this process is very much coordinated and also regulated by the coordinating institution, okay? So the University of Limerick coordinates the running of all this program, but the students do move at least between two universities, right? So on each path, these movements are specified in our program, okay? And I'll cover that in a minute. So I'm gonna go straight there, right? In this part one, which is about, so what is the program? You know, what is the curriculum and what can you do after? And, you know, how does it look to be a student on the program, okay? So you have to study at least two universities. There is no way you can't do this, okay? These are mandatory, okay? And for example, okay, without trying to complicate too many things, but if you are a Polish applicant and you start studying in Poland, okay, you definitely have to not just come to either Limerick or Oslo, but you in your second year you have to go to another country. So this element of two mobilities is very important for the award of this double degree. And a mobility is a period of study outside of your country of origin. Okay. Now, luckily in our program, we don't have that many locals, so it's very easy to just by following the program, live in two different countries other than your home country. However, the internship and the master thesis provide you that opportunity to cover mobility in a second country in case you are in one of these situations of, you know, you're either Norwegian, Polish, Portuguese, or Irish, right? So in the second year, you can make sure to spend the second compulsory mobility in another country, okay? So these are the paths of study. Path A, so at the entrance in the program, you have to apply and then you will be allocated according to a path, okay? You'll be given a position on path A, or you'll be given a position on path B, depending on what you tell us you want to do. So in your application, you have to really understand what these paths are, and you have to tell us what your preference is. And you also have to tell us if you don't have a preference, because then you could be the lucky person who can be given a place in whichever path still has places available, right? Because there is, of course, a cap in terms of how many people can be on each of these paths of study, okay? So the principle of Erasmus Mundus master's programs is that all partner universities participate as much as possible equally and jointly in the delivery of the program. So this means that we are always trying to distribute the cohort of students as equally as possible across all the partner universities, okay? So in Path A, you focus very much on culture and diversity. You start in Lisbon and then you come to Limerick, okay? So this is where you learn a lot about inclusion, right? About how to manage cultural diversity. So here in Limerick, for example, I'm teaching political psychology. We also have community psychology. We focus a lot about how do we know what people need so that psychologically and politically and socially we can design interventions and support them to feel included, okay? In Path B, you start in SWPS University in Poland, and then in the second semester, you go to Oslo, okay? And on this path, the focus is very much on the effect of migration on societies, right? And you're learning in this path very much about how to design social interventions, how to understand what does it mean to promote human rights and to manage and generate social change, okay? Because with the demographic change of diversity and migration, right? So migration brings diversity to a country, diversity in religion, ethnicity, beliefs, just demographic diversity comes a certain amount of clashes between the ideologies and the practical ways of, are we allowed and is it easy enough to practice all our religions now in this country that we all live in, right? So Path B very much focuses on this human rights component, on the social interventions and dealing with climate change and sustainability as well. And then in Path C, the trajectory is that you start in Poland and you come to Limerick in semester 2. So here, what the focus is on migration and health. And the reason for this is because a lot of our applicants were interested in health. So this is why we really, really value your questions, your input, your feedback about what you want and what you don't like about how the program is already there now, because we are always working to keep the program relevant to what the student and the employers, the society needs, okay? So we developed this Path C when we brought the program coordination here in Ireland. And here we have quite a lot of expertise and speciality in health psychology, as well as in making this link between migration and health. So, how do migrants have access to services and so on. Now, in the summer of year 1, everybody comes together in Limerick for a summer school, okay? So whether you're already in Limerick because you were on Path A or Path C, or whether you were in Oslo, you're all coming to Limerick for the last 2 weeks of June, okay? And for those 2 weeks of June, the whole Global Minds cohort is together. That's where Ivan and I were dancing in the photo on the beginning, okay? And in that summer school, you go more into depth in particular cross-cultural methodology. So how do you do research in cross-cultural settings or across cultures, as well as getting much more practical insights from how the topics of the masters are applied in real life. So we're bringing experts that either deliver intercultural trainings or worked with migrants or worked with all sorts of human rights violation, for example, gender-based violence. And those experts every year are chosen and rotated, and they deliver the summer school. So 1 week on methods and 1 week on content-related applications of theory, right? So you see from practitioners, from people working in the field, in organizations outside the university, but also in universities, how these skills that you're learning in Global Minds can be applied, okay? And after the summer school, for July and August, you can either take a rest or you can already start your internship and master thesis. But the official start of year 2 for the internship and master thesis is, of course, 1st of September, right? So most students do a combination of taking a holiday and starting their internship. You already will know who your master thesis supervisor is in semester 2, so you will know where you are going to work with, who are you going to work with for your master thesis. But for year 2, you also have to decide whether you are going back to semester 1 country. So Ivan went back to SWPS, to Warsaw in his year 2, or whether you are staying in the country of your year 2, of your semester 2. So for year 2, you have to make those decisions while you are in year 1. So in year 1, you have to go to do these 2 mobilities no matter what. And in year 2, you have to make this other decision. Okay, do I stay or do I go back? Or for your internship, you could go to Japan if you like. I mean, we don't really recommend considering the costs and the price and all that stuff. But maybe you have a friend in Japan who can give you an internship, and that is also possible, maybe. Okay, so this is more or less what we offer in the program. Okay, based on the learnings from semester 1, everybody in the program will have fundamental knowledge about cross-cultural psychology and intercultural competencies. Okay, so based on that, you can become a cultural mediator or a cultural diversity training or an intercultural expert. Okay, so what do our graduates end up working with in, right? So again, sometimes the choice of paths does make you more or less interested in some aspects. Sometimes the internship really directs your idea about graduation prospects. But in general, this is what we noticed: a third of our graduates do a PhD, stay on to study. So they use all these theoretical and research skills that they learned throughout the 2 years to continue staying in research in the field. And that is either to do a PhD or to work with a research institute. So it doesn't matter what path you're on, a third of our graduates choose to stay on in research. Another third of our graduates choose to go into the third sector, which is basically working at front line with vulnerable communities, with minorities, with people who really are affected by discrimination, by exclusion. Okay, so this direct field work we saw again happening across the different paths, because, for example, in Limerick here, we have some community-based interventions, where we worked, for example, with the Syrian or Iraqi refugees some time ago, and now more recently with the Ukrainian refugees. And some of them were a combination of just psychosocial activities and activities for social inclusion, which you are kind of learning much more on Path A. And some of them were very much about dealing with trauma and about the health consequences of having been displaced and survived the war. Okay, so again, doesn't matter where you are, which path you follow. A third of our graduates end up working in like frontline, humanitarian organizations or community development, basically working directly with people, minoritized people, right? And then the other third go into industry, into corporate, private businesses, where they get jobs, for example, in human resources to manage diversity programs. I saw recently one of our graduates is hired in IKEA. Ooh, exciting, So like, how do you make IKEA more inclusive and more diverse? Because it's so IKEA, right? So yeah, anyway. So those people working in the public or private companies, right, they tend to go more in this organizational psychology direction, okay, about equality, diversity, and inclusion, or the JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, those areas which are very, very demanded right now. So a lot of organizations around the world are really worrying about racism, about ableism, about sexism, about LGBTQ rights, right? So again, it's this diversity typically that organizations care about, brings to these organizations a whole new range of talents, but also a whole new range of challenges, right? Because the building wasn't set up for wheelchair access. So how do you deal with that? Or, in Limerick at some point, you couldn't take a student photograph with a hijab on because there was a rule in the regulations that, you cannot have any head cover when you make an ID photo here, right? And when we started to have students from Muslim countries, of course, we changed the regulation, right? So that's, you would work as the person who changes those rules to make organizations more inclusive, right? So that's more or less what the students are end up doing. Okay. Okay. So here it's a little bit about how we navigate. I think I'm going to skip through this because it's really about how the program is running. I can come back to this in case there are questions, right? But what I want you to understand is that both at the European level, we are coordinating and overseeing what all the students are doing, no matter where they're from the moment of application right now to the moment of graduation, where they become our alumni, okay? But we are also coordinating the consortium. So essentially, we are in constant communication with all four local teams and universities about all sorts of challenges or all sorts of bureaucratic things like housing or visa supports or things like this that are happening or not in every location, right? But what also is very important is that for some particular issues, it is really only the local universities that can provide the ultimate information and level of support you need. Okay, so I have an idea at the European level about housing, but the housing questions and issues and real challenge of finding accommodation has to be dealt with at the local level, whether you're in Portugal, Poland, Oslo, or Limerick, by those people responsible with that. What is important is that we are all working together all the time. And we really hope that the communication lines are always open for you so that you feel that you're not alone. You feel that you have a whole team of people trying to make life easier for you. And again, here I cannot argue enough how important it is that the Global Minds Alumni Association is expanding into kind of student support as well. So Ivan started this year with his team a buddy program, so that the students who just started now in September 2024 already had a buddy, had somebody to ask all the crazy questions and the simple questions like where do you buy bread, and how much is the tram ticket in Warsaw, and why are there no buses really all the time, or no trams or metros or nothing in Limerick, right? So these differences between the different locations, sometimes a student can convey them much more directly, right? Because they are about the everyday challenges of adapting and integrating in the cities, right? So we're really, really trying to work more collaboratively with the current students and the alumni so that we can get you a certain level of, I wouldn't like to say babysitting, but support, okay? That you don't feel that you have to be alone in this journey. However, your shock and your ability to adapt and your ability to learn from all these experiences are still very much with you. Okay, so no matter how much we're trying to organize, for example, 2 orientation webinars after you've been accepted in the program, so July and August, we'll try to catch up with everybody. Then we'll have a 3-week virtual orientation. Again, we're going to run that from the European level while you are actually getting to either Warsaw or Lisbon. So no matter how much of this we do, there will still be quite a lot of learning, quite a lot of cultural shock, quite a lot of adaptation, because this is what migration does to people. It questions the comfort zone all the time. Okay, so now I'm going to come very close to passing it on to Leticia, which I can't help and I can't wait for, because she is very much in charge just since last week. more or less, although Leticia also dealt with applications last year, but we have changed some of the processes for application this year. So some of you might have applied already last year, and for one reason or another, most likely because you didn't qualify for a scholarship. But even we had people who did qualify for scholarships who, for very random but meaningful and powerful reasons, had to drop out of the program, right? So there might be people who applied last year and now they come back to us and everything is a little bit changed, right? But it's not that much change. So we're going to explain what is changed, okay? So we'll start with who can apply, okay? And I can cover this because it's very easy. And then I'll pass it on to Leticia when it comes to the eligibility and the application process as such. So once more, as I said before, this program is for psychology graduates, okay? And what is really important is to understand that bachelor level in Ireland is considered to be a level 8 kind of qualification, right? So again, for this kind of equivalence of, is my bachelor in Romania, where I originally come from, or my bachelor in Brazil, equivalent to level 8, most of the time, 90% of the time, a full bachelor program of 3 to 4 years in an origin country is equivalent to the Irish bachelor. Okay, most of the time. There are very, very few exceptions, and sometimes these are country specific where this is not the case. Now, what if you don't have a bachelor in psychology? Never mind whether it's the right level or not. Can you still come to the program? Well, you could, but you have to demonstrate that between your bachelor and any other qualifications you have had, so maybe a special diploma or a special certificate or a master's program, that between all these previous qualifications, you have gathered enough psychological knowledge in psychology or social sciences, but specifically in research methods. So these 100 DCTS modules equivalent to 100 DCTS is our way of telling you, you have to have at least a 55% load of your previous qualifications in psychology, okay, or in psychology related things. Now, out of that, so say, you did your 2 degrees, okay, and then you have done at least half of both of those things are related to psychology, are related to research methods. This is where you can still join the program, but this is where it will be Leticia who is going to check for this, right? And this is why we want you to tell us already at this eligibility check what kind of qualifications you have, what kind of studies do you have, so that we can check. But generally, for the majority of the cases, so just to give you a number, last year we had over 500 applications and only about 100 of them were, so, 1 in 5 even had to even be checked, like I had the question, oh, do I qualify or not? And the majority of them actually did qualify, right? So like, I think in the end, there were only about maybe 30 out of over 500 who really didn't qualify, right? Because they didn't have enough psychology. So, yeah, so that's how, this is part of, this is the minimum. You cannot apply if you don't have this, okay? This is the minimum. And then you have to have a certain level of English because the whole program is run through English and you have to be able to demonstrate this. And a lot of this small writing here and a lot of questions are around English qualifications, and we can come back to that later. When it comes to the actual documents that you have to submit, there's essentially 4 sets of documents plus the English, which is the 5th, right? So you need your CV in the Europass format. This is very important because the evaluators evaluate at least, say, 80 students. Every single person looks at least 80 different applicants, right? And it's very hard to understand these people if you're looking at photos and colors and different fonts and different all sorts of creative and imaginative ways of presenting the little or the lot that you have done in your life, right? So the demand about a certain format is very important because it means that it doesn't affect and bias the evaluation, right? Then it can be treated, then we can focus on the information rather than on these formatting issues, okay? The birth certificate and the qualification, like transcripts and certificates, are the same as last year. What has changed from last year is that we designed the supporting statement, okay? So the supporting statement is basically where you summarize your CV in words as they apply to Global Minds as much as possible, right? So the form has a lot of, so there's a link there to the form, but you have the link on all the websites where you can access this information about applying for Global Minds, right? Basically, the first 1 to 13 questions are, what's your name and things like that. These are the questions that are going to be counted and that the evaluators are going to pay a lot of attention to. So what kind of research experience do you have? And some of you will only have the experience of a bachelor program, a bachelor a bachelor thesis or a little research project. Some of you will have the experience of being a research assistant. It doesn't matter how big or small. And if you have none, you can just say, I love research, or I don't like research, or whatever your attitude and your engagement with research is, okay? Because this is a research master's. So if you have some previous research experience, it makes sense to come to a research master's to learn more. If you have no research experience, it makes sense to come to the master's to learn it, right? So it's not so that, having nothing won't qualify you. But if you really have nothing, not even research method skills or an assignment where you applied research or a thesis, then you will be disadvantaged compared to the students who have actually used research before. The second question here is about how your internships, extracurricular activities, whether you are doing anything in your life that somehow links you to the Global Mind. So typically people here describe that they that they volunteer in a refugee camp, or that they worked with LGBTQ organizations, or that they worked with kids with disability or family supports or things like this, right? So like the point of this section is that you describe the section of your CV that speaks to your fit to Global Minds, right? So if you have never worked with people before, some of our students' previous work is in human resources or just in on an organization, that qualifies you, right? I mean, that I can see how you can take Global Minds, and then at the end of it, you can go in the direction of 3 of those careers that I mentioned earlier, right? Again, if you have none of this, that's also what you write there, okay? But typically what we saw in the past is that people apply to Global Minds because they typically have a very big passion for it, right? Something here could even be something like a study abroad semester, because that is not necessarily compulsory in your bachelor degree, which means that it was almost like an extracurricular thing. You chose to go abroad, and this is what happened. And while you were abroad, you did this, or you chose to enter a competition to do something. Yeah. So this tells us about the profile of your interests, and we as evaluators have the job of matching your previous experience and your future aspirations based on what you've been doing with what we can offer to you in the Global Minds, right? And when there is no fit, then it doesn't suit either you or us. So that's the whole process of evaluation, right? Is to decide on the fit, and then of course to rank the applicants, right? Because we only have so many scholarships, so not everybody can be accepted. So we are doing those ranking based on the information you give us, right? So there should be a lot of overlap between your CV and this statement, right? Because if I read your supporting statement, and if I look at your research experience, your internship work, and here any other work experience you had, I don't even need to look at the CV either, right? Like because you tell me all I need to know. Okay, the most important part is the statement of purpose, where you tell us exactly how the program aligns with your career goals. So why you think that coming to Global Minds will actually bring you a step closer to your goals, okay? And this is important because, again, like sometimes in the past, which is why we designed the new form, we just got this generic letter of people wanting to study in Europe, or this generic letter that was sometimes even applying to another Erasmus Mundus Masters, you know, that people just start applying to 10, 20 programs. I mean, I don't care. I'm not interested if you're applying to 5 different programs, but I am interested to see why I should accept you on my program, right? So this supporting statement forces you to think about why you would do Global Minds instead of any other program that you're also applying to, right? Like what, and maybe when you fill it in, you realize that maybe this is not for you, okay? Or maybe you end up convincing yourself and convincing us that this is really the right thing for you, okay? And then the other thing here is that there is another section here in case you want to mention anything else. So for example, here is something that didn't fit in the previous sections, but here is also where you can mention things like, for example, we have special needs funding. So we are, we are going to try to assess whether our students, our applicants need this additional financial support. So this is where people can say, okay, you know, I have diagnosed in the past this type of special needs, and I want to also apply for that, okay? Or any other information about financial things or personal things you want to tell us. The references you do not have to obtain as opposed to the previous year before you apply, but you do have to obtain the permission from your referees to be contacted by us, because we decided to only ask for references for the people who are going to get interviewed, okay? Because it's a waste of everybody's time to give thousands of references that might never be used, okay? Also, the references in the evaluation process couldn't really account for much because they are very culturally biased. So since 2017, with over 140 students on the program, we have seen, yeah, I don't even want to apply the amount of things we have read, but you know, just for the students we actually got on the program, we have seen a huge cultural variability between how a referee from India writes a letter as opposed to one from Nigeria, as opposed to one from Canada, as opposed to one from Mexico, never mind Europe. So they should not count at this time because we cannot compare apples with oranges. And this is why we will only ask for the reference to people we will interview. And lastly, the most important part, please make sure to really fully understand the financial situation and the financial consequences of your application, right? So we really want you to specify here if you want to apply for a full scholarship, if you want to apply for a partial scholarship, or if you also want to apply for a self-funded position. Please, please, we beg you not to check that you want to apply for either a partial scholarship or a self-funded position when you already know that you are not able to afford it, okay? I can tell you that even a full scholarship demands quite a lot of financial management, okay? So in this presentation and in some other parts, we are giving you as much information as you need about just the real cost of this master's program beyond even the fees. So we really, really urge you to calculate whether you can afford or not now. So if you tick the first 2 lines, you're going to be part of the first round of applications. If you tick all of them, you're also going to be part of the first round of applications. But if you don't make it, if you are not given a place in the first round, there could be a possibility that your application gets rolled over into the second round where we only accept self-funded applications, okay? More on that on another occasion. Right now, we urge you all to apply, even if you know that you want to come on the program just for a self-funded position, okay? But we want you to be very honest whether you can really afford the partial scholarship and the self-funded position because these financial worries have caused a huge amount of stress for the students once they get on the program. Okay. Also, what happened is that people say that they want to come, they accept the offer, and then 2 months later, when they did the calculations, they withdraw, which means that we don't have our students on the program anymore. So other people were deprived of a chance to come because the people who said they will come but couldn't really afford to come had to drop out. And typically the dropout is very late because you still keep your hope up, but miracles don't really happen when it comes to money. I mean, I don't believe in the lottery even. So yeah. So what is this eligibility thing? So I don't know. Maybe Letitia, you wanna take over for this piece? Okay. So mute here.
Okay, cool. I think Anka already mentioned the process in general, right? So I just want to give you a brief overview of what is the application process so that you can go for it, right? So basically, remember you have this first step that is the eligibility check, and Ivan created this wonderful video, and it is here. I don't know if you guys have access to the chat where I put the links there, but there is one link where you have the tree and there are several links there, and one of them is this video for the eligibility form. So that is very good because you can actually have like a step-by-step process. This is the video, thank you very much. And so you can look at this Qualtrics form that was created to check your eligibility, okay? So just to understand what it is about, it's really to check if you have those things that Anka mentioned before. So do you have a degree in psychology? If you do, that's very straightforward. You don't even need to describe your modules, for example. It's really about having that level 8 that we were talking about. Should you know what this level 8 is? Not necessarily. You don't. You need to know about your own context, your own country, and then you will find in the form, for those who haven't done it yet, you will mention which country you're from, and then it automatically gives you the list of possible degrees there, and you choose yours. And this is automatically calculated. So remember, we just need to make sure that you have enough credits and your degree is recognized in Ireland. So this is the first step. And then several people are reaching out asking, if I don't have a degree in psychology, can I still apply? Yes, but again, then you really need to prove that you have enough credits in psychology. And it is quite a lot. So if you are really coming from engineer or whatever, and you have nothing to do with psychology, then you won't be accepted. So you need to have enough credits. Keep that in mind. And when you do that, so in the form, you will have that calculation. So then you come up with the credit system as well. So you need to, and Ivan explains all this in the video with much more detail, so I won't go too deep into it, but keep in mind that you will have to do this conversion to the ECTS system, right? Which is the European system, which is an attempt to kind of organize how credits are distributed in different universities and so on. This is not perfect, so this is something that you need to keep in mind. Systems vary deeply, even in Europe, not only also mentioning other parts of the world. You can't compare them, and we are aware of that. So don't panic. There is an example. There is a PDF file that you find in the form. Have a look. It's quite comprehensive. It's an attempt to kind of see how more or less how the countries deal with that. We know that. Even in the same country, you have different systems, but try and give us some conversion numbers, right? So you can also calculate it in terms of hours. So in your local system, how is it? Like one credit is equivalent to how many hours? So then you can kind of Google, okay, how many ECTS is that? And you have an attempt to show us that. We will look deeply into this, right? So we will look at your list of modules. please describe them as best as you can. Again, this is for the ones who don't have a bachelor in psychology, and then we can actually calculate if you have enough credits. So this is all the eligibility form. It's basically to show us that you have enough credits. Okay. Once you do, and if you are eligible, you will get this email. We have sent several emails now between last week and this week, so you should have gotten your link. So you get a link to our GPS, our graduate school in UL, and this is where actually your application starts. Okay, if you haven't had your link yet, that means you possibly were considered ineligible. Okay, and then if you were considered ineligible, that's basically because you didn't have the equivalent of level 8 in psychology, as Anka was explaining, or you didn't have enough credits in psychology. Okay, now, was that a mistake? Do you really believe that actually you have enough, you are eligible? If somehow you believe that that was a mistake, you can actually start again the form. Okay, you can ignore completely what was done and do it again as best as you can. But then really, like, the form is really to assess your eligibility, and if you don't pass that, it's basically because you are not eligible, okay, for some reason. So this is more or less how it works in this first step. And then you have your application. Okay, now off you go with your documentation, right? And this is where you need to upload all those things: your passport, your language certificate, your transcripts. Remember that everything needs to be in English, so you do have to translate with an official translator. And this is here also, don't panic if you make any mistakes. This is something that people sometimes reach out to us. Oh, I forgot to submit this or that document. What will happen is that once you apply, someone in the graduate school will check each of your documents. And if there's something wrong, they will come back to you and they will say, you still have to submit this, or you still have to submit that. So there is an open conversation that goes on for a little while, if needed, until you actually have all your documents submitted. Okay. Now, language requirements, right? Again, remember that if you are not from an English-speaking country, you actually need to have this proof of English. And there's a list of certificates that are accepted. We have this list we shared with you, and it's here in the chat as well. If you don't manage to have this done during your application, it's okay. You are not going to be under-evaluated or somehow have problems with your evaluation in this process, but you will have to present it at some point. Okay, so what they do in the graduate school is that they give you a conditional offer. And this is how they deal with it. So if it's impossible for you financially or something like that, because these things can cost, we understand that, you could still apply, and later on, if you for example pass your interview and so on, then you can upload your certificate. Okay. I think Anka mentioned the whole thing about the references. You only need to mention them right now, so don't worry too much about them. Then some people did come to us saying that they had problems with the statement of purpose file, right, which is a Word document. So for the majority of people, I believe that this is working well. This is basically a Word document, and you have the boxes where you can actually edit and you can add your text there. So it should be fine. And if you are having issues with that, I suggest that maybe try and see if you can update your Word, the Word itself, or if you can use maybe another computer. Maybe you were trying with your phone. You know how these things are. Sometimes you need to try different approaches in terms of technical issues, but it's basically a technical issue. You should be fine, and you should be able to fill this form. So if you're not, maybe try and find a few technical solutions like this. Okay. What else? Some people ask about their nationalities. All nationals are welcome. You can definitely apply. There were a few countries that were not listed in the form, unfortunately. And then, if it is the case, you just really email us. So these are the things that we want to follow up with you by email. We were really overwhelmed by the amount of emails, so some of you might have had quite a delay, or maybe you didn't get any reply yet. We are dealing with them. Most of the questions are kind of covered in this webinar, so we are happy with that. But then we really want you to email us if there's something special like this, okay? So for example, if your country is not listed in the eligibility check, do email us, and then you provide all the information that should be in the form manually in the email, and then we will be able to follow up manually, and you can get your link if you are eligible, okay? Um, People also ask if they are still undergraduate students, if they can apply. Yes, if you are going to graduate before the program starts, you can still do it. So you will have to prove that this is the case, and the graduate school will be the perfect people to talk about this, okay? So they have exactly the criteria they need, they have the documents, but usually you submit this letter explaining that you are doing your course, and that's in such date you are to graduate, and this should be enough. Okay, people also ask about if they can hold a master's degree. They can. This is so this is the situation where sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good. So what do I mean? Sometimes you have a master's because you want to prove that you have more credits. Exactly. You, for example, you are from another field, but you took a master's that gave you credits in psychology, or for example, you didn't have the equivalent to a level 8 in Ireland. So then you need to kind of get more hours, more credits to reach this point, and you do it through a master's. So that's good, and you can definitely use it, right? But also, when it comes to the evaluation later on, maybe it is the case that you are considered overqualified in a way because you know this masters won't really bring you so much new inputs and whatever. So that happens, right? So we have had cases where people actually had masters before, and then they applied, they got an offer, but then they quit because they thought this masters wasn't really adding much to their lives. So you see, so that's how the master's degree can be. It really depends on the case. Keep in mind that nobody has to pay any fee to apply. Okay, so because we are Erasmus Mundus, we don't charge anything for to apply for this program. And the application is the same for the ones who want to apply for scholarships or not, or self-funded position, okay? Later on, as Anka explained, then we will have only a self-funded position. That is a different story, okay? Because then it's all self-funded. But for this application now, which is only one application, okay, for all modalities, partial scholarships, full scholarships, and self-funded, you don't pay fees. Also, just to explain, right, maybe people don't have this full clarity, Anka mentioned, but the scholarships, so if it is a full scholarship that you get, and this is merit-based, this is according to the ranking of your evaluations later on, including your documentation and including your interviews. So the full scholarship is about a fee waiver for the whole program, plus a stipend, right? So that you can have means to actually live during the 2 years of the program. The partial scholarship is basically cover. Oh, here it is. Thank you, Anka. So this is the stipend, right? So you have actually 1,400 euros per month for 24 months. And these are 10 full scholarships that are actually given each year. And partial scholarships, we will have 19 partial scholarships this time, and they basically cover the tuition fees. So you don't have to pay for anything in terms of the costs of the program itself, but you definitely need to cover your personal expenses. Then they can be quite a lot. So you really need to be mindful about that. Yeah, sorry, I'm covering this, Anka. I think I will pass it on to you again. But basically, these are the context that we also need to see in your application, as Anka said, right? So you really need to understand if you are applying for only full scholarships, only partial scholarships, or self-funded. And keep in mind that that doesn't change anything in terms of the likelihood of you being approved. Okay, this is very important. You are going to be assessed no matter what, and it regardless of being so people might think, oh no, I will tick all the boxes because then I am more likely to be approved. That's not how it works. You will be evaluated. Everybody will be evaluated at the same time, considering other things. But for us, it's really important to know if you later on, let's say, if you get a partial scholarship offer, can you actually go for this, right? So please be mindful because, you know, for most people, actually, you can only do it if it's a full scholarship, and that's fine. And then you're competing with the people on specifically that. But if you can also get a partial scholarship, you are still likely to get a full scholarship. So that's great. If you get there, and so on. And if you want a self-funded position as well, and also a scholarship, you can take all the boxes. Sorry, I'm rambling. Uh,
No, you're not rambling at all. I just want to go back to this part, right, where we were going to tell people how is actually going to happen, right? And then maybe this also puts this funding part in perspective, right? Because as Leticia said, um, we don't look at the finances when we evaluate the applications, okay? The declaration that you need a full scholarship, or you could also come and accept a partial scholarship, or you could actually even support yourself. That comes much later in the evaluation program, in the evaluation. It doesn't come in the evaluation at all. It comes later in the selection process when we are offering places. Okay, so the way we do it is this. You guys submit your applications by 10th of January. Again, the sooner the better, because we have time to do all the paperwork, but we are going to evaluate everything at the same time. So if you submit tomorrow, okay, I'm not going to read it tomorrow. I'm still going to read everything together, because then I can compare them. Okay, so this evaluation will happen between the end of January and the end of February. And from the 4 universities, 2 people are allocated to read every application. So you will get a blind score from one person in Lisbon and one person in Warsaw that Leticia is then averaging. And that gives you a score, okay? That score puts you in a ranking. Nothing to do with scholarships. It's all to do with fit to the program and merit, right? So the excellent students always get on top. It's absolutely natural, right? Because the scores of the 2 evaluators will capture this. If the 2 evaluators, one gives a 10, one gives an 8, that's okay, because it's an average of 9, they're close enough, but sometimes we don't allow such a divergence. Sometimes if the difference of 2 points between evaluators or more, we actually have a third evaluator looking. Typically these scores are very close, right? And when they are not, we appoint a third evaluator to give a third score to see maybe one person really missed out on how excellent you are or how fit to the program you are, right? So the evaluation, this ranking that we finalize in that first week of March, is done entirely according to merit. Okay, the merit of your application, as in how good you are academically, how much your past experience makes you suitable to the program, but how much your goals and your future career aspirations also make you suitable to the program, right? So this is why the statement of purpose is so important. Tell us why Global Minds is exactly what you need in your life, and we will respond to that, okay, by evaluating the people for whom Global Minds is just a natural next step, as opposed to people who are just trying to come to Europe or to just get a scholarship, but actually have no even understanding of what Global Minds actually can offer. Okay, because we of course always also have those kind of applications, you know. So when this ranking is finalized based on the paper application, we are going to meet as a board from 4 universities to decide on this ranking and to judge whether there were some of these discrepancies that we have to reevaluate some or not, and things like this, right? Then we will take the top 100 people who scored the 100 top scores, right? And that's when we are going to ask for references and invite you guys to the interviews. At the interview, you will have two other people. Most of the time is a random distribution of who interviews you compared to who evaluates your paper application. So it is likely that your paperwork and you as a person in the interview will be seen by 4 people from 4 different universities, because we are doing this to avoid any sort of bias or any sort of preferences or personal favoritism or something like this. Okay, after the interview, both evaluators again give separate scores. These are again brought together. A ranking is generated based on the interviews, and based on that ranking we start making offers, and only at that point do we look at the scholarships, right? Only at that point can we make these really hard decisions of somebody is offered a full scholarship or a partial scholarship. However, the decision is usually just based on the ranking, right? So if somebody ranked first and they ticked self-funded, this person didn't want a scholarship, then they won't be offered the scholarship. But if they rank first, then they will be offered the full scholarship. The first 10 are offered full scholarships. The next 19 are offered this year the partial scholarships or the tuition fee waiver, and then the next 15 on the line will be offered full funded places. Now, in those next 15, okay, if you have ticked the box that you cannot afford, you know that you can only accept an offer if it's in the first two categories, then you will not be offered the self-funded, right? This is where it comes. So after you've been ranked according to merit based on the paper and the interview evaluation, okay, that's when we start worrying whether we make an offer to somebody who can afford to have it or not. So when we distribute the last 15 places on the program based on our ranking, which are self-funded places, we will not send those offers to a person who checked that they can only join the program for a full scholarship. That's a waste of everybody's time, because you cannot accept that, because you told us that you can only join the program if you get a full scholarship. Okay? So this is more or less how it works. So we are not allocating the scholarships based on need or desperation, or you're not getting an increased score in the merit and the fit to the program because of financial deprivation, right? If you make it in the top rankings for the respective category of funding, you will be offered that kind of funding. But if you told us that you can only come to the program for a full scholarship, you will probably be offered the partial scholarship, but probably not even, because it's clear that it's not going to be able, you are not going to be able to afford it. And there are other candidates who ticked both boxes, who said, yes, I could also come to the program with a partial scholarship. So then we will prioritize them. Okay. So the declaration of what kind of position you would accept on the program is only valid at the last point in the selection process, where we are preparing to send the offers to you. All the way until there, we are judging your application based on your fit and your motivation to join the program. Okay, I'm looking at the time, and my 45 minutes is way past. So the fees were covered by Leticia, and now I want to shock you with this one. So screenshot everybody right now, quickly, quickly. Well, no, I mean you have some time, but this is our very best attempt to support you make those calculations. Okay, I see some shocked faces there. Listen, the only thing we can do is to offer the scholarships we have available. Okay, we cannot control the housing costs in the different countries. We cannot control the living costs. We also really are powerless when it comes to the visa costs, the stamp, the residence card costs, this kind of moving from one country to the other, right? We have discovered, for example, that actually for Path B students, okay, there is this additional expense. I mean, we didn't discover it. Oh, wow, it was such a surprise. But we became very aware that for the students on Path B, for example, right, for the non-European students on Path B, not only are there the costs of Poland and Norway, right, but there are also the costs of the visa coming to Ireland. Okay, so here I didn't even put it, but you have to add the Irish visa cost, not the residence permit, just the visa for the 2 weeks when you're coming to the summer school. Okay, we are looking into how much can we fund and support some of our students for those visa costs. Okay, we are not promising because we cannot promise, right? We cannot know, if this year there is one student who really cannot afford this, right? As opposed to 10 of them won't be able to afford it, then if we say, yeah, we can cover the visa cost, we have to cover for 10. We do not have that kind of, pot of gold, okay? But we do have an emergency fund in the Global Minds budget where when situations are really desperate and where the student is really trying their best and, it's just got to a point where he's very stuck, we are trying to help. But do not make your whole calculation about joining the program based on an emergency fund, because that will definitely not cover even the month, the a whole month rent or something like that, right? So these are real costs that we really urge you to consider. Again, I said it before, even for the students with a full scholarship, sometimes it's demanding, right? Because you have to really calculate your money and you have to adapt your lifestyle, right? So if you're used to eat at the restaurant 5 days a night, you might discover that that is not possible on your full-time five times 5 nights a week. That will not be supported by the Erasmus scholarship, not even in Lisbon, right? Or in Warsaw. So this is a kind of also the kind of stuff that sometimes will add up, the cost of flights, the cost of going home, the cost, all sorts of other costs, costs of medication or costs of all sorts of other things. Now, remember that what we do offer to all of the students on the program, and that is not written here, is that we offer you a full health insurance for traveling. So this travel health insurance is a compulsory rule from the Erasmus Commission, from the European Commission, that basically says that every student accepted on an Erasmus Mundus program should have health insurance cover. And the way we found the insurance through our University of Limerick, who coordinates the program, is that this is essentially a travel insurance. So it covers your health needs, but also other things like lost luggage, or I broke my leg and I had to use taxis to go to school, things like that. So that it does come for everybody, irrespective of the grant status or self grant or something like this. The other thing I want to mention is that there are these possibilities also. Okay, that there are some Erasmus mobility grants, that there are some other kind of loans, for example, or other kind of external scholarship that you can apply. So, for example, German students, Dutch students can apply to their own governments to come to study somewhere else in Europe, right? So for every single person and nationality, there might be some additional financial aids that are completely outside of our power and outside of our control. So when you start thinking and planning and calculating, if you can afford this master's program, we would really encourage you to have a look at a lot of these things, right? None of these things are guaranteed by anybody, right? What is the only thing we can guarantee is when we offer you a full scholarship position, we can guarantee you that. All these other things are not guaranteed because they are not controlled by the program. Okay. So there could be loads of other questions about this kind of stuff. There were some other questions in some of the things that we received from you. Some of these things are to do with, can I come with my family? And our answer is no, really seriously. I mean, unless you're a millionaire or have a millionaire mother or father who can support you. But seriously, the grant will not cover the cost of more than one person. And also, nothing else in the program or nothing else in our universities can help you support a dependent, right? So, we did have applicants before who had children who would have wanted to bring the baby along or bring the young child along, and we just couldn't say, yeah, we accepted them on the program. This was definitely not a reason to reject them, but we couldn't offer them any type of supports for that particular family situation. The other question we always ask, and this is a question that probably Ivan has more to comment on. So maybe Ivan, if you want to say something, I know this comes like, okay, only if you want and if you're there, but working while you are on Global Minds is challenging. Okay, so we do not recommend it. So yeah, it should be like a last resort, if at all, right? And there is a big difference between year one and year two. I would strongly say don't plan or rely on working in year one. But then again, Ivan did, and I don't know how he survived. So Ivan, do you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, so in my personal experience, I did work like for a Mexican company from like work from home kind of thing. And it was really intense because it was okay, I'm gonna study in the morning, and during the night I start working at 5 p.m. and I finish working at like midnight or 1 a.m. from time to time. So yeah, it is really hard. But I mean, I guess I was used to it since my bachelor's to always work and study. But I do not recommend it. It was the same here when I was in Warsaw, then when I went to Ireland. But yeah, like it can be done. It's just like it's really hard.
Yeah, and the other part that is hard, right, is that there are differences between the universities in how much time you actually physically have to spend at the university. So in semester one, in both Warsaw and Lisbon, you have a lot of time in the classroom. And Global Minds is a not necessarily full attendance, but it's a full-time study program. So if you don't attend, you will lose out. A lot of the courses are taught through exercises, tutorials, workshops, class-based interactions, right? So if you miss that, you might even fail the module, or definitely you won't get as much learning done, right? So in semester one in particular, not only do you have the shock of being in Europe and trying to figure all these things out, you have the shock of now studying at the master's level. For most of you, this is a higher level than you studied before. Only a very small minority, maybe 1 in 20, accepted on the program would have had another master's previously. Okay, just like Leticia mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just also the other thing about financial matters, right? And we really make this point because we see this struggle later on. So we want you to start talking about this with you guys at this application moment. So the other thing that sometimes people do is like they rely on extra fundings from, for example, Erasmus Plus and things, right? So that, oh no, I'll be fine because I can apply to different fundings and I will be sorted, which is not necessarily the case, unfortunately. So what you need to keep in mind is, yes, there are fundings available and you can definitely apply, but it's not like a guarantee, and you might you end up struggling, if you don't immediately get something. And you, either way, you will have to have, you have probably to prove that you have enough money for the visa and things like that. So you can't say, oh yeah, but I might get a funding later on in while I'm already there studying. So just be mindful of that as well. So look, it's tricky. So what we want to say is, like, people experience different realities. People, sometimes they do manage to work a little bit, for example, to cover for their basic needs. They might have extra funding and so on. But please, you would definitely need a cushion. You definitely need to come with some money so that you can go through this and actually not starve. We don't want students starving here, for example. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the other aspect to it all in terms of working, right? It makes a huge difference whether you're a EU or non-EU citizen. And also in Norway, there's another complication, I think, because of obviously Norway, well, not obviously for everybody, but Norway is not officially part of the EU. Okay, so they have some, rights, but it's a different system. So for a non-EU person, they have to apply sometimes for a working something, a working permit or a tax number or some sort of proof of residency and all sorts of stuff. So you more or less can't get anything done very fast, right? So some of this paperwork alone can take 1 or 2 months just before you can actually start working legally, right? So Ivan was still working for Mexico, which worked, but trying to work for something in Poland, also when you don't speak Polish, it's very, very hard. So Ivan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's really important to showcase that, because at first, when I first arrived here in Poland, I was like, yeah, I don't care. I will work as a waitress. I will work like anything. However, it is difficult. Like, you need to do the all these tax ID process. At least for me, that I'm not non-EU, because I'm from Mexico. Like, I do when I went to Ireland, I was the same. Like, I'm gonna work as a waitress in a cafeteria or something. But you have to keep in mind that there's a still legal process for you to receive money. So yeah, the tax ID, for example, in Ireland, even though if you arrive like on January and you want to do the whole process, you have to be mindful that probably if you get a job, the first payment will be probably on April in that case. So, and you will get, like, you will need to start looking for a job practically on March when you have the tax ID. So it does, you have to keep in mind that, yeah, as Leticia was saying, you need like that caution when you arrive to a new country. It is because of the tax ID and all the processes that you need to do beforehand.
So look, without being too pessimistic on this note, right? But I do think that first of all, when you consider that Global Minds is the best fit for you, that everything you've wanted to do, you can do through Global Minds, then that combined with your previous results and your academic expertise and so on, you will be in the full scholarship pot of applicants, right? And you will hopefully make it in the first 10 or the first plus another 19 fee waivers, which of course help a lot, right? Because at least you're not paying that money just to the university to just be registered and have a student card and basically get the education that costs so much, right? I think that these financial considerations are a source of stress that we have seen our students struggle with. So my advice right now would be, if you don't get a full scholarship, just um, so if you don't have that financial reserve, right? If you make all your calculations and plus or minus the potential additional grant or something like this, right? And you don't have the financial reserve, you're better off not to start the journey. Okay, try to apply again next year, and then next year you might make it in the top scholarship list. It's a very sad reality. However, your mental health and your ability to actually enjoy the program and actually really learn from the program and also socialize with other people and also learn about the different countries where you're going to live in and all this kind of stuff, all of that will be compromised. Okay, because if you have to work constantly during the night, you work like Ivan did, during the day you study, you do not have time to network. You do not have time to really dedicate and invest in your education. Studying for a master's student, for a master's degree, should be studying to improve your qualification, to improve your chances to get a job that will be paid at the master's level as opposed to a bachelor level, right? But you will only get out of this master's what you put in. And if you are financially struggling, you cannot put in the effort. You cannot put in the dedication, that you need to earn a master's degree, right? So compared to a bachelor degree, the master's level education involves that you are more independent studying, that you do more work on your own. It's not like you go to high school and the teacher tells you what to do and you then do it. And no, it's much more about self-investing in your education and networking and attending events, going to lab groups, working, in research rather than waitering and hotels and restaurants or any job that you can find so that you can put food on the table, right? So I think it is important and it is sad. And, for a program that talks about inclusion and exclusion, we are always sad to face this reality where we see that some students are absolutely brilliant, but because they couldn't make it in the top 10 or this year it just did, it was just not their year, then we will lose them. But either that happens or they will come hoping that maybe a partial scholarship will be enough and then they will work, but then they will struggle. And then what you get is a mental health problem and a whole range of other issues because even the cohort itself has to suffer, because Ivan is on his computer all the time. He's not talking to us. He's working, for Mexico. And I'm joking because he could actually do it all because he's a master of multitasking, right? So like this is the example that things are possible, right? So it's kind of find your place in all of this information that we gave you and kind of, be realistic about can you come to this program and give it all so that the program can give it all to you? Or is it better to first invest in your financial situation, maybe work for another year, build up some of that financial cushion that you need so that you can experience a really good learning journey in Europe between very good European universities and in a cohort of absolute cream of the cream from around the world, right? So what Global Minds offers is definitely something unique because it's very experiential. It's a combination of collaboration of inputs from the very top of the psychological field that we have between all of our universities, right? And we do want to share all that with you. With a third of you, we even continue doing PhD. So I have currently two PhD students who are alumna of the Global Minds program, Anastasia Zubareva and Liliana Mbeve, and they both got very exclusive Irish Research Council PhD grants, right, which are really, really hard to get, right? So again, these masters is a channel into a future career, whether in academia or elsewhere, but you have to make this decision around whether you can afford it or not and at what level can you afford it or not. And be mindful that if you say you can, but in reality you can't, you're essentially stopping somebody else from coming on the program. So this year we had a huge dropout. We accepted on the program we made 43 offers to people. And in the end, only 33 students came on the program, right? Because it was too late to roll down and invite the next person in the ranking by the time these people gave up either their full scholarship, partial scholarship, or self-funded space, right? So be mindful of that also, when you apply that we want you on the program. All your evaluation is not going to be made based on your financial situation. All the evaluation process, the written evaluation on the application and the interview are done by different people from different universities, and they are done solely on the merit, the excellent um, records that you bring with you from around the world, and the fit between what you want to do in the future, and what we can offer. Okay, this is what will decide the ranking. And then once the ranking is done, then the offer of places will depend on financial sustainability, suitability, and if you can afford it or not. So I really hope you will consider applying. I really hope some of this information will help you. I think we will try to make this table of costs, more. More understandable, or we'll try to put even more information maybe on maybe Ivan, we can think of something like that, like extra, kind of financial guiding. Ivan is very good at all this, shooting all these little clips and stuff like that. So we can go through all of this stuff as well. What I would like to end with is perhaps just a reminder that this is a program that offers you a chance into into careers that can really make a difference, right? The psychology of migration, inclusion, and diversity can make a real difference to how our societies work, to how we can generate positive change, to how we can mobilize people out of poverty, how we can support people who suffer displacement and trauma. This is what you're going to learn in this program. You're going to learn about how psychology can help people uphold their human rights. So we really hope you're interested to join us. And what I would like now is to stop the recording, okay? And then maybe we can also have, a conversation with the people on the call. I try to respond to some of the questions, right? I saw Ivan, I saw Leticia also tried. I don't know if we managed to answer quite all of them. Again, some of them we also talked about. There is a question here that I will address before we even take questions, right? So, Ivan, you can stop the recording, I think, and then we can just allow people to come in. You can put your cameras on as well, but you don't have to, and I don't know if you can, but never mind.